Hi friends, welcome to this lesson from my garden, Equipping Believers to Pray. It's a quick overview of my book, Garden Tools, Tending the Garden of Your Heart. What is prayer? Prayer is really not rocket science. It's talking to God. But sometimes having a conversation with an unseen, uncreated God can be a little difficult. And that's what I began to encounter when I talked to numbers of believers who said, I want to pray, I just don't know how, or I run out of things to say in 5 minutes. I felt like the Lord directed me to put together a training manual that reflected a lot of the things that He's taught me through the years. The prayers in this book are meant to be strategies, not formulas to be memorized, but models of prayer that can be used on a day-to-day basis. If you own one of my books, consider this an introduction and an overview to the manual, to the powerful tool you hold in your hand. If you'd like to purchase one of my books, please see the store on my website. I don't know about you, but I hate to waste time and effort. And I really don't like to waste time in prayer. Do you ever feel like your prayers are just like fighting the air, that it's going nowhere, that it's bouncing off the ceiling? When I read James 5:16 that says, the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much, my heart was so moved. It was a promise. I wanted that. I wanted to be effective or strategic in my prayer life. I wanted to be able to make a fervent, passionate appeal that touched the heart of God and moved Him. I know it mattered to be righteous. That was a given. But how could I move my prayer life into a place of being strategic and effective and powerful to move the heavenlies? How could I be powerful in prayer? I have a gym membership because it's the right thing to do. I should go work out. I should eat right. There's a lot of shoulds that we have in our life to keep us healthy. But I must confess to you, when I first started going to the gym, I would discipline myself to go, but then I would be faced with all this intimidation as I looked across at all of those machines and all of these people that really looked like they knew what they were doing. And I would scurry over to the corner and jump on a treadmill because that was safe. But then one day I got my courage up and I heard a trainer. And she taught me how to use the machines. She taught me how to pace myself. She taught me how to use all of the different weights. And I gained confidence so that now when I go to the gym, I can confidently move from the treadmill to the elliptical and even get on the machines and use free weights. I had a coach who encouraged me and gave me insight into the gym. The same thing goes with prayer. To take our prayer life to the next level, sometimes we need a little coaching, a little guidance, and a little encouragement. The garden of the heart. Anybody that knows me knows I love gardens. I love the color. I love the fragrances. I love the processes. I love how gardens reflect seasons and time. One of my favorite analogies is the garden of the heart. You know, God really loves gardens. The first thing He did after creating the world was plant a garden. When that one didn't work out too well, He planned another garden. This time, the garden He planned would be in the center of His most treasured earthen vessels, you and me. He had great designs for the garden of our heart. For right in the center of the garden of our heart, He created a place for a well. He wants to be our source of living water. On the outside, He created a body. It's just like a fence. It's a vessel. What He's most interested in is the life that goes on behind the face, in our soul, in the soil, where He plants and He waters and He designs. He has great, great plans. He celebrates the quirkiness of the soil of our heart. What may look like chaotic and full of weeds to other people, He sees purpose. He sees a plan. But there's one little caveat. In the garden of our heart, He needs us. Just like He needed Adam and Eve to tend the Garden of Eden, He needs us to help in tending the garden of our heart. 5 gateways into the garden. Spiritual laws are just as real as natural laws. Everybody understands how gravity pulls everything toward the earth, or how when you plant a corn seed, you will get a corn plant. For what you sow, you will reap. Those laws are just as real in the spirit realm. Gravity is the same thing as the pulling of God's love always toward Him. What you sow in the spirit realm is what you will reap, cause and effect. All of these spiritual laws are very real and very active, but yet so many Christians don't even understand that these principles are working around them. Ignoring them, denying them, or being ignorant of spiritual law does not erase the effect that those spiritual laws have on your life. God designed the garden of our hearts with 5 gateways or 5 principles, 5 spiritual laws to provide provision so that our gardens will flourish and will have life and life in abundance. These gateways have gates that swing on hinges. They can swing toward blessing or they can swing toward destruction. The laws of the gates are neutral. Righteous behavior causes blessings to flow. Unrighteous behavior causes destruction and damage. The enemy of the Lord has come and has damaged the hinges of our garden gates, so that often these gates swing away from righteousness and allow destruction and poisonous seeds and poisonous weeds and a lot of pain in our gardens. But the good news is that through prayer and understanding, these hinges can be repaired. For righteousness unlocks the gate to swing toward the blessings and the fullness of life that the Lord has planned for us. Understanding your handbook. Your handbook is divided into 5 cycles: abiding, freedom, intercession, warrior wisdom, see His glory. These 5 cycles represent aspects of a growing believer's life. It takes time and diligence to grow a beautiful garden. When you sit with the King and you pray these prayers, if a phrase jumps out at you, own it. Know that He has highlighted that, and that's an important seed or an important strategy for your growing garden. One of the biggest things lacking in believers today is an understanding of the spiritual realm and the power that is theirs to overcome. Trust God and trust His processes, for He brings the sun, He brings the rain, and He brings the increase. Abiding. I love that word. It means to live, means to dwell. It's to be there. The Bible says if we abide in him, that he will abide in us. If we abide in his word will abide in us. Then we can ask what we wish, and he will give it to us, so that his Father can receive the glory and that everyone will know that we are his disciples because we bear much fruit. It's conditional, though. If we abide in him, if we live in him, if we live in his word, we will know what his word says. We will wish for the things that's in his word, and we will see his word manifested in our life. If. It's a promise, but it is conditional. It's a daily choice. Sometimes he initiates the conversation, but most often we do. He's just waiting. Will we choose to abide today? The prayers in this book are training tools to learn to abide in him. Freedom. Jesus said, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he's anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." So what does this mean? What was this good news? The good news was salvation. The good news was freedom from the law. And who did this good news come to? Those who were poor in spirit, those who were spiritually aware of their need for him. He came to give freedom to the prisoners. That's deliverance to the captives. Those who were held in bondage to their past, to their generational sins of their fathers, he was coming to set them free. He came to give recovery of sight for the blind. The God of this world blinds us to truth, the truth of who Jesus really is. And Jesus said, "I came to this world for this reason, to testify to the truth." He came to release the oppressed. Oppression is the feeling of being heavily burdened inside, like having a broken heart. Jesus came to bring inner healing to those who were oppressed. Jesus came to declare the favor of the Lord. That's his acceptance of us as his children. Everyone has had pain and suffering in their life that causes limited growth and limits in their prosperity. The prayers in this cycle are for inner healing and deliverance. Intercession. I looked for a man among them who would build up the wall and stand before me in the gap on the behalf of the land. To intercede is to plead for the case of another. To intercede in prayer is to plead another's case before God. One of the most powerful things that we can do is to pray God's will on behalf of another. But how do you pray God's will and not fall into the trap of praying your own will, your own judgments, your own opinions for someone else? One of my favorite prayers is in this cycle, and it's shattering strongholds for others. I can step out of the way and really begin to pray God's will over somebody's life. Other prayers in this section include prayers of intercession. Warrior wisdom. Let's face it, ministry can sometimes be messy. And just in the process of helping someone else find Jesus, we can get defiled. This is a scriptural principle. In the ceremony of the red heifer, it was a ceremony for purification. All of the priests and all of the helpers, after the ceremony was over, had to go through their own series of ceremonial cleansing, where they actually had to be separated from the camp for a time being. Using wisdom in times of war, of helping other people, will help us to avoid being a casualty of war or dying from infections from wounds from the war. The prayers in this section are for the warrior's own health. See his glory. The heavens proclaim his righteousness, and all the peoples see his glory. I want to see. Sometimes I think I look, but I don't recognize the obvious. I don't really see. I want to see his face. I want to see the evidence of his fruit in my life. As I connect every day and choose to abide in him, I want to see the evidence that his glory has been made manifest in my life. The prayers in this cycle are prayers that cause our soul to pause and to see his glory where it showed up in our day-to-day lives. It is my daily prayer to grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord, and that is my prayer for you. To paraphrase a well-known metaphor, I could tend your garden for you, or bring you cut flowers and vegetables and fruit from my garden. But if I teach you to plant and take care of your own garden, you will have food and beauty for life. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or need prayer, contact me. Stay tuned for more lessons from my garden.